Hey there, this is Matthew Hill from Hill Ponton for another Hill Ponton YouTube live session. I see that we already have quite a few guests. Thanks so much for coming. I'm hoping to be able to answer as many questions as I can. Some obviously I don't quite have details, information, but where I can help, I look forward to helping. As most of y'all probably know, we're a law firm that represents disabled veterans and their appeals. We are so overwhelmed with vets who want our help, and we're fortunate to be in a position where we can help some vets, but we cannot help them all. And so this is kind of a way that I like to see there's people I can help along the way. So let's get started. We've got Fred asking, what is the percentage dollars for your services? Is it based on the increase or a determined length of time? What is the average time required to get the increase? Thank you, Z. Okay, so you're talking about what is the percentage we charge as attorneys? So we charge what's called a contingency fee, meaning we don't get any benefits unless we win. And frankly, with most cases, we actually have to get an outside medical exam that we pay for up front. And if we don't win, we actually eat that cost as well. Our percentage is 30% of whatever the retro amount is. So it's based on the increase. So whatever the first retro that comes in, not the ongoing monthly benefits, we get a percentage of that. As far as timeframes, as you might know, Fred, the VA has changed their appeal process, frankly, for the first time since the 80s, I guess I'd say. And we have, anybody who tells you how long it's going to take to get VA benefits right now, I would look at with a jaundiced eye. I would be really wary of taking that, because the VA doesn't even really know what their times are right now. Everything has changed. It used to be, I tracked ours, and from when we would get a case after a decision to when we got a decision was typically about 27 months. Now what I'm seeing is that vets are getting decisions quicker, but they're almost all denials. And so the VA can go to Congress and say, look, we're issuing decisions left and right. This is so much faster than our prior system. We're doing a great job. The job I've seen is shoddy. That what they're doing is they're sending out decisions quickly. They're not thorough. They're not giving, even when they grant benefits, they're not the correct amount, and the effective date is wrong. So time to decision is a lot shorter. It's probably measured in months, but it's time to correct decision, I'm still seeing it take years. So, that's what we see. And there might be other people saying different things, and that is what it is, but that's what we see here. David, I already have proof I have hearing problems and was given hearing aids by the VA due to a tank blast at the NTC. Tomorrow I have a compensation exam in El Paso, Texas. What should I expect? Any advice? The hearing test they use is the Maryland hearing test, which is this antiquated test that, frankly, the majority of audiologists do not use anymore. I have been extremely frustrated over my career when it comes to hearing cases, because they have this test that I don't have access to. I can't administer my veterans. I don't have, I talked to the doctor, said, hey, can you do this? And like, look, we don't even have the equipment to do that, because people stopped doing that as a standard of care years, if not decades ago. So what I'd recommend is you make sure you talk to him. And it might even be worth writing this down and giving to him a statement saying what the effects of this hearing loss has. Can you hear loud things? Can you hear high things? Can you hear loud things? Or low voices? Because those are the kind of things that they should know and they should record. Can you hear well in a group of people? Can you hear across the room? That's the actual daily living. You got to take the test. I've seen a lot of tests that came back that I think underrate the veteran, but if you at least get your statement in there, hopefully the doctor can reconcile the statement with a test that doesn't, if the test does not actually show what's going on with you. All right, Sammy Gay, thank you for helping me get TDIU, Atlanta, Georgia. Sammy, we're glad we were able to help. We love what we do. FU. Are that got the first and second stimulus checks that live off their VA disability check going to receive a third stimulus check? I don't know the answer to that. VA benefits are tax-free benefits, unlike military benefits, military retirement. So they should not count towards your taxable income. And this is the kind of thing you probably want to talk to an accountant about. But that shouldn't mean that, if you got it in the first 2 times, I don't see why you wouldn't be eligible unless Congress lowers the ceiling. But frankly, that shouldn't count against you because it's not taxable income. All right. KY, I submitted an adequate report for my private doc, but VA scheduled a CMP exam anyway. I refused to go. Claim was denied and I appealed to the BVA. Could BVA issue an award without CMP? Yes, it could. As far as refusing to go to a CMP exam, the VA can use that as an automatic denial in your case. They have the law behind them. They're allowed to do that. You need to explain to the BVA, you say, here is my exam. I believe this is adequate, and say why. Does it connect something to service? Does it show the increased rating you have? You need to go the extra step and say why you believe it's adequate. BVA still can deny you on that. Okay, so it's just important that you take that extra step. So as frustrating as it is, I call it they have a duty to assist you to win. I call it the duty to sabotage. What they did is they sabotaged you there. It looks like you gave them adequate evidence to win your case, but they just came back and said, no, they said, oh, this is quaint. This is nice. We're going to go get our doctor to look at it. Just kind of as an aside, what I do, if I know the VA is going to get an exam, I'll try to let them get their exam first. And then I have my doctor not only give the opinion that I think is adequate, to show why something's service connected, but I also have the doctor critique what the CMP examiner said. So if you still have this doctor who's willing to go to bat for you, maybe, I don't know that you're writing an addendum. I think you have the medical evidence you need from what you're saying. You just need to write and say why this shows validly portrays what you're going through. And then KY, could a dentist do a DBQ to rate headache disability secondary to teeth clenching? To rate, I don't know, but to service connect, yes, they could say that teeth can cause migraines, can cause tension headaches, but to rate it, you probably need a medical doctor, not a DSS or DDS. All right, so re-roll 1, filed higher level review for claustrophobia. VA found duty to assist error, and 3 Fs, in-service event, diagnosis, and Nexus. But Nexus was to another stressor. VA is asking for lay statements to be certified ASAP. Is service connection next? Okay. So you have to have, and so it sounds like they found the favorable findings of in-service event, diagnosis, and Nexus. If they found saying it was to a different Nexus, that doesn't make sense. If they found an in-service event that was a stressor, a diagnosis, the Nexus, I guess what they would have to do is certifying that this event they found was actually the stressor that caused it. So it seems to me like they would do another CMP exam on that. I'm not sure though. But as far as lay statements, I would get one. Obviously you need to write one about that new stressor that they've conceded, and anybody else who was there, anybody else who saw you before and after. Anybody else can tell the VA what was involved with that stressor. So I would do more than one statement on that. Okay, KY, could chiropractors and acupuncturists legally do DBQs? How about Nexus statements? I have found that the VA routinely denies these, that with the chiropractor in particular, and I'd say an acupuncturist as well. What I think they can do, I would never hire a chiropractor to give me a Nexus opinion. VA will just shoot that down. As far as rating though, the ratings for orthopedic problems are done on frankly, a range of motion is typically what all of them are. And a chiropractor is certified to do that. Chiropractor can say, here's how far he can bend without pain, or here's where the pain starts. So I would argue that you could use a chiropractor for range of motion for a rating, but for a Nexus, I've never seen the VA accept the chiropractor for Nexus. I'm not saying that hasn't happened, but it's just when I've had vets use that before, the VA just shoots it down out of hand. Says, "Oh, nope, that's not a medical doctor. They're not competent to give that opinion." But for a range of motion, I believe that they are. Julia OJ 316, can VA combine asthma with sleep apnea? When the claim was filed for sleep apnea secondary to allergies, secondary to asthma, and secondary to chronic sinusitis or sinus, all were service connected. So you should get a rating for each one of those. This was kind of a hard question for me to follow, but if anything that's secondarily service connected, unless it's a 0% rating, you should get a rating for each one of those. Like a sinus, I see a lot of sinuses that are 0%. Sometimes asthma is as well. But if and we'll put up right here the rating schedule, and you go find these disabilities. But if your disability, the severity of the disability meets a rating, then it should be separately rated from the underlying disability. Walter M. Mayberry, I'm honorably discharged U.S. Army veteran under physical disability. I did RE3, or I found out they meant 3 tours for 2 months, 2 days, 3 times. Acute duty, true, but more than 5 years, and then 15 on top. Okay, I'm sorry, Walter. I don't quite understand if that's a question or a statement, and I'm not really following. It sounds like you're trying to say if you are should be receiving retirement benefits, but I don't know. So I'm not gonna go somewhere that only messes things up more. SND, can you file a claim for autoimmune disease secondary to cirrhosis is also considered autoimmune? Yes, you can. I mean, unfortunately, autoimmune diseases cause all kinds of diseases in your body, and which also include autoimmune diseases. So as long as the symptoms of that second disease are distinct and separate from the first, then it's not about filing the claim, it's about getting more compensation. Then you can be compensated for that. All right, Tom Marine Vet, good to see you again. Cerebral 1, we were service connected at 10% for PFB. Can a licensed barber write a buddy statement as to my condition over the years? He's been my barber 15 years. He can write a lay statement saying, look, this is what I've noticed on his face. He can say, I've done this I've been a barber for 15 years, and I've seen this across different individuals whom I've cut their hair or worked with, but he's probably not adequate. There's an argument there that his statement could be adequate to give the VA what it needs for either a rating or possibly a Nexus. They're going to fight you on that, though. That's the kind of case, unfortunately, I think you'd have to take to court for them to discuss competent evidence, and does it have to be a doctor? My whole thing is, do you want to make new law, or do you want to get the benefits you deserve? Because sometimes those are distinct roads. Sometimes if you can get an opinion from a doctor, or in this case a PA or a nurse practitioner, I would go for that. But I like what you're saying. I'd get a statement from the barber, because that would lay the foundation for anything that's given to you as far as a medical opinion. Living in Mexico. Oh, hey, Sam. Thanks to you for being here. Living in Mexico. Hello, Matt. I know you're not a medical professional. I do play one on TV. But have you ever seen a case that links a lower back injury to a lumbar formal stenosis, narrowing of the foramen where the nerves go through? So, yes. So you're talking about a lower back injury that happened in service, and then currently you're dealing with that stenosis. Yes, stenosis can be a hereditary problem. And so the VA might come back and say, this is not related to service, this is related to your genes. Even in that case, if the lumbar trauma in service were worse enough, it could accelerate that. It could pinch that even further. So there is a possibility there, but you're going to need to find a doctor. This is one of the hardest things I have to find, as far as finding a good orthopedic surgeon that will sit down, take a look at what happened in service, look at what's going on now, and talk about why they're related. And they have to talk about things like, is there a family history of this? And if there is, why, why this trauma either quickened it or actually, helped induce it. So yes, you can. And that's not me playing a doctor on TV, but that's me saying you need a good ortho surgeon to look at that. But it is a case you should prosecute. You should go after because you can win. It's not an easy case though. Okay, Mark on demand, pursuing financial freedom. When it comes to being TDIU, in your experience, have you ever heard or had anyone who had rental properties while being TDIU, potentially making higher than poverty threshold, but passively? Mark, you hit the nail on the head. Passively, okay. You can't have. There are a lot of holes on how you can earn income with TDIU, but the one you're impressing upon us, and I think it's important that everybody understand this, is that if you have rental properties, if you had stocks, if you had an annuity, if you have something that's sending in income to you, but you're not daily working for that, a rental property you could daily be working for if you had to go, put in new drywall, put in new appliances, put in a new counter, and you're doing all that work. That's something where the VA might take a look at. But if you're just sitting there collecting a check and every once in a while you're helping replace a tenant or something and doing light work, light maintenance, no, that's, as you said, passive income. That does not count towards your threshold of poverty level. Could the VA come after you if that's your next question? Sure, they do. They screw this up all the time. But at that point, you need to write out a lay statement saying, this is where the money's coming from. This is what I do on a daily basis to maintain it. And this is why I shouldn't, this is not something I'm actively working at. All right, SavFam. If after HLR, higher level review, the DRO sends it back for additional evidence and/or examinations, can you submit additional evidence before they make a final decision? This is a massive point of argument we have had with the VA, and I belong to an organization called NOVA, where we've actually pressed the VA leadership on this. So backing up, when you file a claim, it's called a supplemental claim. In that claim, you can submit whatever you want, and the VA has to consider it. Once that claim is decided, you've got three options. One, you can file another supplemental claim, submit more evidence, and do it again. Your effective date is preserved, meaning the date you originally filed is preserved. So that first claim is when you would get benefits from. Two, you can file a higher level review. And then three, you can go to the Board of Veterans Appeals. We'll leave the Board of Veterans Appeals aside for a moment because they have their own 3 lanes. But when you file that higher level review, you cannot put in any more evidence. It's a closed file. They decided on that record. The question then becomes where they say, well, look, the guy who made this decision before me screwed up. They didn't get an exam. They didn't go get these records from the National Archive. So when they do that, then it goes back to the supplemental claim. We have tried to submit evidence at that point saying, look, it's back to the supplemental claim. This is where you can submit evidence. And they reject it. They said, no, this is part of the higher level review. You can't submit any evidence now. The regulations and the statutes do not speak to that, meaning they don't say that you can't submit evidence once it goes back. But that's how the VA is playing it right now. So can you? You should be able to, but are they allowing you? No. So in a way, it's frustrating. You almost got to let them develop their claim, make their decision, and then you decide, are you going to do a supplemental claim, or are you going to go to the board? Because at that point, they're also saying you can't go back to higher level review. It's a mouthful, Sav, I know, but that's a very good question that I've personally been frustrated with. And I spoke to somebody earlier. We just put up the rating schedule. Check that out for your secondary sinusitis, sleep apnea, and all that to see what you might meet as far as ratings on that. Walter M. Mayberry, how do I get rating for loss of all my teeth from what VA said and WV and denied being able to pull all my teeth, and it costed me $600 in a tooth, and I have to pull myself, and did and lived. Walter, first of all, I'm sorry, that sounds awful. I hate the dentist. The fact that you had to be your own dentist is awful. So right above your question, Walter, is the rating schedule, and there's one on dentistry that I would look at and see what the ratings are there. If it happened in service, meaning they pulled your teeth in service, you don't have teeth now, it's pretty hard to the VA to say there's not a connection, not a nexus for those. So I would look on there, see what they rate. I don't know what it is. We don't handle dental claims, but again, I'm sorry that's awful, and I would definitely pursue that. Okay, Ronry Powers. Let's say I have a back pain that radiates to my left pain, or I have wrist pain not in military records. Is a nexus needed, or can I just get, or can just good personal statements be enough? Doctor won't sign nexus letter. I mean, you are competent to say that you have pain in your back, you have pain in your arms. Unfortunately, the VA is going to say you're not competent to get to state how those two are connected. You know, to me, to you, it's easy. You read a book on radiculopathy. This is not like deep science medicine. This is very established medicine. So you do need a doctor's statement. If your doctor won't do it, then I think you need to write a thorough statement, and you need to demand a CMP exam. That's your best option there, because they're just going to say, well, you know, you're not able to do this because you don't have a medical doctorate. James Makel. Never had a CMP, but was told I had one. I can prove I was working that day as a first responder. I'd send in that information saying I was working that day. The question is going to be, were you alerted to the fact that you had a CMP exam? So if you're alerted to the fact and you didn't ask to reschedule, the VA might say, we don't care that you were working. So you need to address both. Did they tell you? And, you know, look, I know I didn't have an exam this day because I was working, and frankly, as first responder, you know, that should be pretty easy to show between a paycheck and then also in your bosses. So yeah, I would definitely push that. JT, the BVA today sent me a letter decision granting my TDIU. How long before I see a deposit in my account for back pay? JT, congratulations. If you went to the board, you fought far, you fought well. Good for you. I'm glad you got your benefits. So what happens is the board says, we grant you these benefits. In this case, it's TDIU. And then the case goes back to the regional office and they have to implement the decision. I've seen decisions take up to 2 months to be implemented. I would say after 2 weeks, if you don't get a response, I would go to if you have a veteran service officer, or I think there's like a telephone line at the BVA. We had been using that and had mixed success, but I would start calling them saying, hey, where is this? Because here's the thing. With TDIU or any complete grant that you get for a disability, say you got migraines, you know, for example, at 50%, it's not TDIU, but that's the max rating. The regional office, does not have to do any development of evidence. They don't have to go get an exam. They don't have to get records. It's right there. It's done. All they literally have to do is issue a decision. Now, one thing that can hold this up, if a veteran gets a retro that's over, I believe, $25,000, there has to be 3 signatures at the RO. Okay, so usually, let's say you get a $10,000 retro, the VA is going to come back and just one person has to sign it, boom, it goes out. But if it's over $25,000, 3 different people in the VA have to sign it. I have found that adds time typically, because it's, you know, you usually get the person who's writing the decision, that person's boss, and then some random person in the RO. So that can cause a delay. But bigger point is, hey, you're getting the benefits you deserve. Congratulations. I know you must have had a long fight. It took you up to the board. And I hope that after this, you get to move on with your life and live and not deal with the VA. Oh, let's see. Paul Patras, JT. Oh. Okay, Jim Dunn. How can I get compensated for PTSD that wasn't recognized at the time of my discharge, but it was backdated after 30 plus years? So I don't really understand what you mean by backdated here, Mr. Dunn, but PTSD is an insidious disease. It's something that can kind of stay hidden inside people, or it can, you know, be out and about, but the person doesn't recognize it. Most of our veterans are Vietnam vets, and I'll go back and look, and some of them had trouble ever since their discharge, but others led a life that seemed normal to everybody else, and then they retired and things just fell apart. So the delayed onset is quite common. And so, you would need a doctor to look at whatever happened in service, the trauma you went through, and what's going on now, and put a link between them. But the delayed onset is, fortunately, it's quite common to see that. Let's see. Army George, what would happen if you get 100% PNT and TDIU about the same time? What would the VA go with? All right, so this is an interesting question, because if you have multiple disabilities, where I see this a lot, so vet has 70% for PTSD, he has 40% for his back, and then 20% for one leg radiculopathy and 20% for the other, and then maybe migraines on the top, and all of those combined to 100%. Well, that's 100%, and you get paid 100%. But if one of those disabilities causes the vet not to be able to work, then the vet would be eligible for IU. Okay, and why that's important here is that the other disabilities combine to 60%. And if you have one disability causing 100% or IU, and you have another 60 combined, then you're eligible for a special monthly compensation. They call it SMCS, and that's another $300 to $400. We'll put up the what's it called, the benefit schedule here, and you can look through. But so that's actually a very tricky thing that the VA finally started admitting in the last decade or so. So if you can prove that your unemployability is due to one disability, and you have another several that combine to 60, then you can get more benefits. Otherwise, Mr. Powers is right. It doesn't matter. You just get the 100%, you go with 100% scheduler and move on with your life. Go from there. All right, G Quince. I had the Norplant placed in my arm. After suffering several side effects, I had it removed. I now have a scar tissue and pain in the area. How do I claim this? You want to claim under the scar. If you scroll back up, there's again, going to the rating schedule. You want to look and see where that would fit on the diagnostic codes for scar. There's so many different things they look at. They look at size, they look at diameter, they look at the what do you call it, the contact or the consistency of the skin itself, and they want to know if it's painful, if it breaks still. So you want to look at that and figure out where that would lie on there. All right, Timothy Gray. My myelodysplastic syndrome is considered a presumptive condition by Camp Lejeune water contamination? So MS, I do not think it is. I think that would be one where you would need to find a doctor to give you an opinion saying that those chemicals, the TCE, the PCE, actually did cause that. And so that would, you can still prove it, but the VA is not going to give you a presumption and just automatically service connected. And if you have MS, I would fight hard to get that service connected, because that's just such a it can be such a awful disease and put a lot on you. And again, if you're entitled to these benefits because you served our country, then you should go after them as much as you can. All right, Cerebral One follow-up, had second CMP exam for claustrophobia to see if car accident is responsible for condition. CMP examiner said yes, it was. Second CMP examiner, 1 DBQ done by VA, doctor all positive. I'd say service connection's next, and if it isn't, you better keep on appealing, because that would be I've seen VA do stupider things, but if you've got that much positive evidence, I mean, the obvious thing to do is service connect. So let's put it this way: your benefit, your disability is related to service. If VA doesn't recognize it right away, fight and keep appealing. Okay, don't let them wear you down. That's overwhelming evidence. Okay, Shemp Howard, I mentioned anxiety and excessive worry on my discharge exam many years ago. Absent a current diagnosis, can I pursue this as it persists? No, you have to have a current diagnosis. The irony is you don't have to have a diagnosis in service, but to be compensated, you have to have a diagnosis right now. So like, I get a bunch of folks who come to me and says, hey, I was exposed to asbestos, or I have exposed to asbestos. And I say, okay, well, what problems do you have? Do you have any lung problems, or do you have, breathing problems? And they'll say no. They'll say I was exposed, or they'll say I was exposed to Agent Orange. And I'll say, okay, well, do you have diabetes or heart condition? And they'll say no. The problem in service alone is not enough. the fact that you're still suffering from anxiety to me says you need to go see a doctor. That anxiety just doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's a rating you should have for that. If that makes no, excuse me. There's a diagnosis that you should have, whether it's anxiety or depression or some other mental health condition. But if that persists, then you need to get a current diagnosis, and then it sounds like you're on your way to having a claim. Okay, Jacques, in your opinion, how complicated are vertigo claims as they are similar to migraines at 80%? Okay, so I am at 80%. Okay. Vertigo claims, they're easier if you're already service connected for like hearing loss or even tinnitus. I think you got to show typically what I've seen in those. I haven't handled as many of those, but typically what we try to show is some kind of trauma to the eardrum. And once we've done that, then we show the physical manifestations currently, and hopefully you have a diagnosis of vertigo, and then show that this is related to the other. If you have, if you go online, I do not have a copy of this handy, but there is a list of military occupational specialties that the VA will automatically presume the veteran was exposed to loud noises and probably had acoustic hearing trauma. So I would look for that, because the VA, they wrote it, but they forget they wrote it, and they still deny that's on this. So I'd look for something like that and see then if you could connect the vertigo from there. All right, 80%. Okay, smooth sailing. How do I know that VA included bilateral calculation on my ratings? Can explain how the bilateral is calculated. Okay, we got a calculator for this. We'll put this up here. This is one of the most frustrating, I think, things that I see. I just lost my, okay, there we are. So the bilateral factor, basically, if you have, the VA looks at it, if you have opposing bilateral, I'm missing the word here, extremities, so arms and legs. If you have a disability of the wrist for 10%, a disability of the other wrist for 10%, then they give you another, oh my gosh, what is it? Go check out the calculator, because I'm going to blow this for some reason, but I believe they give you I think it's an additional 10% on that. I don't know. I apologize. I don't know how I just blew this, but basically what they do is they take the two, 10% and 10% are actually combined to 19, and then they take another 10% of that, which is 1.9, and they put those together. Okay, so the more significant it gets, 2020, 2020 on your legs, they combined all the bilaterals together, and that will give you, that small percentage starts to add up. Closer you get to 100%, it actually helps you get to 100%. So I'd recommend looking at our calculator. We spent a long time programming it, but it'll show you everything. You put in the bilateral and you go from there. But if you ask for, how do you know the VA did it? Do that first, see if you come with a different number. And then if you ask for what's called the code sheet, I think you actually have to write away for this. It should be attached to your rating decision, but the VA doesn't like giving it to vets. It'll show you everything you're rated for, everything you've been denied for, and it'll show you other things like bilateral factor, what the actual percentage is, and it'll show you like TDIU, permanent total, all of that stuff. So that's how you would know if they did it, or at least they said they did it. Our calculator gives you an option to figure out, is the math correct? Okay, we got about 5 minutes left. Let's see. Okay, let me just see. The kid, 2508, injured back in service, separated in 14, CMP in 15. Doctor says no injury, degenerative issues. Pain continued constantly until I injured it again in 2019, led spinal fusion. Can I still connect it? Yes. That was a bad CMP exam you had in 2015. You need to get another doctor to go back and say, whatever happened in service weakened your back. And frankly, that probably is what led to the accident in 2019, and that your back was already in a compromised position. So yes, you can get it service connected. You're absolutely going to have an orthopedic doc look at it. if you can't get an orthopedic doc, get any kind of doc, but orthopedic would be best to say, this is how these things progress. If you get an injury and it heals one day later, then it's probably not going to last. But if you get an injury and it lasts, my understanding, orthopedic back injury in particular, that lasts over 3 months, that's going to have some chronic effect on you and on your back. Okay. Let's see. AB. VA didn't get my diagnosis. VA didn't get my diagnosis for urinary urgency. I got a new medical evidence that links it to my degenerative disc disease. Should I do a supplemental claim while I'm still on active duty or when I get out? You're not going to get paid until you get out, but doing one now, I would do it now so that you get paid more quickly, so that you get out. Hopefully they get it right before you get out, boom, you're getting the correct percentage you should. Let's see, B. Wilson. I managed to get my TDIU with SMC. How far back can the effective date be pushed back? It can be pushed back. I mean, the absolute farthest back would be the first day you applied, but it can be pushed back under this new system when you first filed that supplemental appeal. There are still ways to go back farther than that. If you filed before 2019, you can look and see, were there decisions before that in 2019 that had evidence submitted within that. So let's say you had a 2017 decision, and then 2 or 3 months later you submit more evidence on the issue. Well, the VA has to make a decision on that new evidence, and if they haven't, then that's still open. But that effective dates get incredibly intricate and complicated. But it should go back at least to the date under this new system that you first applied. Okay, supplemental claim denied, higher level review denied, supplemental claim granted. Well, it's not that second supplemental claim, it's the first one. All right, living in Mexico, let's see. Rated 100% PNT, SMC, age 48. With the evidence, I've achieved this on my own without a VSO. Go to the doctor and get your ailments documented this in a way. I mean, yeah, you want medical evidence. All right, and Tom, I think you're helping me out here with, Tom, Marine vet, I was granted TDIU with back pay. I still have claims pending, and after the TDIU award, I got 100% PNT. My rating shows 105 PNT under which states TDIU with the original filing date. There you go. So you can see where it was filed. Okay, just looking through a couple more here. I apologize, I'm not gonna be able to get to everything. Rob Teague, if you have an IMO stating you have PTSD and proven stressor, how can a CMP examiner come to a different conclusion? Because they're crazy. Sorry, I get, you triggered me. I get frustrated with that all the time. You can ask for another exam. If you have an IMO, hopefully you have a doctor who's willing to go to bat for you more than once. And I would ask that doc to write an addendum to his. And first thing I would do is request the actual exam. It's just a DBQ, disability questionnaire, that the VA doc filled out. I'd ask for a copy of that, and I'd ask your doctor to say, comment on this. What do you agree? What do you disagree with? And I have found that very effective in the past, but I get really frustrated when they do stuff like that. Okay, Omar Castillo, decision letter reads, while your service treatment records reflect complaints, treatment, or similar diagnosis to similar what was claimed, the medical evidence supports the conclusion that a persistent disability was not present in service. 3 years later, they said disability was not diagnosed by the VA, even though you have sought multiple treatments. 2 years after that, they said the same thing. They didn't bother sending me another CMP for my back. What are my options? Getting an outside exam is probably the best thing. The next best is writing a letter saying, this is what happened in service. This is how my back felt ever since. It never got better. It never stopped hurting. It got worse sometimes. It got a little better sometimes, but it never stopped. And that's what you want to say. That's what they're going at with the persistent disability. So if you have that, that's what I would write. Okay, I think I'm being pulled here, but let me see. I got one more here. Alan Joseph. Hello, Matt. Thank you for all your free advice to Veterans Combat. Craig has great things to say about Hill Ponton. Well, I have great things to say about Combat Craig. He is full of life, and he is so entertaining, but man, is he informative. And I'm glad that people here are watching him, because I can't commit the time to the daily review of these issues that I would love to, and he does. He does it for free, and God bless Combat Craig. He's great, and he also says things in a way that as an attorney I might not be able to put it. He has good turns phrase. All right, one more question. Cartagena Daniel, I am service connected with Crohn's for 30%. Can I get chronic pain? It's claimed secondary to Crohn's. I've suffered from abdominal pain from disease for a lifetime. You absolutely can. You might want to tweak this a little bit and say not only chronic pain, but also if you have any depression, which even if you don't think you have it, I'd ask those around you. Something like Crohn's can just be devastating, change your whole life, just sometimes even destroy the image you have of yourself. So the pain and depression or mental health condition can be one and the same. And since those would be a different set of different set of symptoms, then at that point, I think you can show the VA, look, this is what's going on. And the irony is, especially if it's under a mental health condition, that is probably going to be rated higher than the Crohn's. I see that all the time where I'll have a vet with a back pain at 20%, and we'll talk and realize he's seriously depressed, and all of a sudden he's got a separate rating of 50%, sometimes even 70% for the depression. So definitely file that, Daniel. Okay, that's I think that's what I got. Living in Mexico, thank you. Yeah, and I recommend to Combat Craig. He's very informative and a lot of fun. I wish I could be as fun as him in addition for him. So thank you all so much for coming today. That wraps it up. I got to say, I think most of y'all have done this, but if you've noticed this week, we did switch around the times and we're still trying to find a solid time. So I highly recommend subscribing to our channel and then hitting it's called the notification button that basically lets you know when we go live. I'm hoping we can get more consistent with the schedule, and I appreciate that y'all were so flexible and coming kind of on a last minute instead of our normal time. So, but go ahead, subscribe, hit that notification so you all know whenever we're up, and go from there. Until next week, actually, I don't think I'll be here next week. My children have spring break. But until next time, I look forward to seeing you all and looking at your questions again. Thank you.